Hello, and welcome to Time Lost, COVID-19 in High School Athletics. This is a presentation by me, Dylan Simmons. Now, I chose this presentation because COVID-19 has had a huge impact on us all, and nowhere is that more prevalent than with high school athletics. And that's what I'm hoping to show here today, the absolute impact and the overall scope that we have seen from COVID-19. So let's get into it. First of all, how did we get here? There is no questioning as to how different the world we live in is compared to what it was just 3 years ago. Everyone knows how COVID-19 led to unprecedented circumstances, and professional sports have been no exception. However, one story that is not told nearly as much is the story of high school athletes who had to deal with years of progression being taken away. High school is a time when athletes are still trying to find their footing as future stars, so losing certain opportunities drastically affected the future of many. We may never truly be able to understand the scope of what has taken place, but there is no doubt that we have already seen much of what can take place once problems arise. Crunching the numbers. It's amazing how quickly plans can be derailed. In mid-March 2020, that happened to so many high school athletes across the nation. Many studies show the consequences of this. In a study by Timothy A. McGuine, it was reported that grade 12 students saw an increase in self-reported anxious and depressive symptomatology in comparison to other students. This makes sense when we consider the value senior year holds in the hearts of so many, and how much it means in making one final statement on a high school career. McGuine also found that team sport athletes experienced more stress during the first few months of COVID-19 when compared to individuals. A lot of times, team athletes feel as though they are having to play for not just themselves, but for their entire team. Therefore, having COVID occur likely could have dampened their self-esteem and have them lose that team atmosphere that so many love. Here are some infographics that demonstrate this. On the left side, you see grade 12 with COVID. These go over symptoms such as general anxiety and how they were compared in comparison to the lower grade athletes. On the right side, you see teams versus individuals. This focuses on the symptoms of stress, playing for all, self-esteem, and atmosphere. Continued with crunching the numbers. A study by Orgelis M. Morales found that over 85% of children in Italy and Spain decreased their physical activity time during the pandemic. It is likely that this was the same case for athletes across the world during this time. In addition, it created behavioral problems and increased anxiety among them. When an athlete is passionate about what they do and it is taken away, it can impact their mental health and sense of purpose. Another study performed by McGuine came to the conclusion that adolescents who played a sport during the pandemic described fewer symptoms of anxiety. This again only adds more leverage to the idea that physical activity can positively impact those who engage in it. By not having it in certain schools, athletes were led to feel worse as time went on, giving them more mental health effects. Here are again some more infographics describing this in greater length. On the left side, you see decreased PA, or physical activity. Morales talks about the 85% of children statistic and talks about the other statistics dealing with athletes, behavioral, and anxiety problems, as well as passion. On the right side, you see the positive effects that sports can have, and McGuine talks about that more in detail and adding leverage to the overall idea of physical activity benefiting those who engage in it. First-hand accounts. You don't just have to hear from statistics to see the impact the pandemic left on athletes and coaches. I decided to reach out to a few sports figures in my home county to get a clearer view. In this video, I met with Coach Tyler Sapp of the Van Buren County Eaglettes basketball team as he discussed his experience and what he saw from players during this time.
We kind of had a little bit of a limited attendance. It wasn't like anything crazy.
Yes.
But now, like, we went on the road and stuff like that. It was kind of like the Christmas tournament that we played in that year. And Gatlinburg was I can't remember if the attendance was limited or not, but obviously a lot of our fans and stuff don't travel just to what, just the Christmas tournament stuff, but um, it was just a whole lot of, more things we had to do and fool with.
First-hand accounts continued. Perhaps the best vantage point is from an athlete who had to deal with the pandemic themselves. Cade Simmons is a tennis player who had his debut high school year affected and taken away due to COVID-19. He discusses what he had to do to adapt.
The biggest impact was just not being able to practice because, when I really was dealing with COVID, it was my first year really being involved in the sport and just not being able to learn those basics, being kind of walled off and being able to practice.
Where are we now? Arenas, stadiums, and fields are beginning to open up capacity once again, and fans are beginning to make their way back. Athletic programs have mostly reemerged, and high school athletes are beginning to find opportunity once again. This is important for Middle Tennessee, as it can serve as a way to remember how crucial athletics truly are for the youth of our midstate. It can also be a way for residents to be prepared to come up with alternative actions in the case of a similar circumstance to COVID arising. Stories such as COVID-19 in professional athletics and college athletics would serve as good follow-ups to this one, as there are a lot of alternative options that would serve as a way to outline these differences between the different levels. Things may never truly be the same. Sports had to adapt, and athletes did as well. It led to unprecedented circumstances and new methods of play. The effects of this pandemic will live on in the specter of sports for years to come. That concludes my presentation on high school athletics and COVID-19. Thank you so much for watching.